She was just another employee in the company cafeteria. But that day, time stopped when he noticed what no one else did. The sound of the coffee machine echoed quietly that cloudy morning. The cafeteria at Velmont Corporation's headquarters felt like a parallel universe where executives rarely stepped foot and smiles were real even if tired. Ellie Carter sat in her usual corner, following her silent morning ritual, a simple piece of bread in her hand, fingers still scented faintly of cleaning supplies, and a soft gaze lost in the window. It was early. The higher-ups didn't usually show up that time of day, but that morning Damon Hale, the man behind it all, walked in, tall, polished, a graphite-gray tailored suit, every step precise, his gaze steady. The kind of presence that made the marble floors feel like they waited for his footsteps. Someone gasped. Another employee elbowed her friend. But Damon didn't look around. He only looked at her. Ellie didn't notice. She was focused on a half-eaten slice of bread and a torn notebook page where she scribbled quiet thoughts. She had no idea she was being watched by a man who had dated 40 women from magazine covers, none of whom had ever sat alone with just a piece of bread, and that kind of serene expression. Something about her stopped him cold. He didn't know her name, but he knew he'd never felt anything like this before. Without knowing why, he walked over. "Is that bread actually good, or is it just hunger talking?" She looked up, and the world fell silent. "It's what fits in my budget today," she said sweetly, without shame or sarcasm. Just truth. Damon didn't know how to respond. He was used to witty comebacks, flirty glances, power games. But with her he got something rare, honesty, humanity. "Mind if I sit?" She hesitated, eyeing the chair like it didn't belong to someone like him. "Sure, sir." "Damon," he corrected gently. "Just Damon." She smiled again. And he realized that this woman, wearing a simple uniform with working hands and dreaming eyes, had something that none of the 40 glamorous women ever had. She was fully present, not trying to impress, not expecting anything in return. "So, you come here often?" he asked, instantly regretting the cliché. She laughed. "Every day, 7:15 sharp, always the same bread, only the coffee changes." "What's today's blend?" "Bitter, but it matches the mood." He looked at her cup. Black coffee, barely steaming. "Mind if I buy you a better one tomorrow?" She raised an eyebrow, tilting her chin playfully. "Is that a pickup line or just corporate charity?" Damon smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in weeks. Can it be both? Over the next few days, what seemed impossible became routine. The CEO, now just Damon, showed up at the cafeteria, sometimes early, sometimes late, but always in. Time to see her break that simple piece of bread, like she was afraid to waste even a crumb of life. They talked about everything and nothing. Childhood stories, books from the public library. She told him about the beauty of living small and seeing big. And she tried to hide how much she was starting to care, because she knew who he was. She knew stories like hers didn't end with a prince. They ended with unfinished sentences and people walking away. Then one rainy morning, he didn't show up. Ellie looked at the empty chair, her chest tight with a feeling she didn't dare name. But next to her bread, she found a folded note. "Board meeting today, but I'll be thinking about your coffee at 7:15. Save me a smile. D." She held the paper like it was something sacred, and for the first time, she was scared. Scared of caring too much. Scared he might feel the same. Scared that their worlds would never let it be real. Upstairs, Damon sat in his glass office, ignoring spreadsheets and emails. All he could think about was her, the girl with the bread, the one who somehow filled a space that all the others, glamorous, perfect, empty, never touched. And down below, Ellie tucked the note into her pocket like a fragile spark. Two worlds were about to collide, and what came after? Not even fate could predict. He could have ignored it, could have forgotten. But what she stirred inside him wouldn't leave, not his chest, not his schedule. That following Friday, the cafeteria was emptier than usual. Most employees had already left for the weekend. Only Ellie Carter remained in her usual corner, shoulders more slouched than other days. A half-empty cup of coffee, a piece of untouched bread. Thoughts somewhere far away. She didn't expect to see him, but Damon Hale walked in. No suit, just a rolled-up shirt and slightly messy hair, as if he'd run from something, maybe from himself. "You end every week with the same bread?" he asked, standing by her chair. "Didn't even start it today." He sat without asking. Pulled. A small paper bag from his leather case. "I brought something different. Homemade bread. My grandma used to send it when I lived in Boston. Thought you might like it." Ellie blinked, surprised. This wasn't just bread. It was care. It was memory. "You bought this?" "I baked it," he smiled. "Well, almost. Asked my mom's cook to use Grandma's recipe." She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Instead, she took the bread gently and whispered, "Thank you, Damon." As she tasted it slowly, as if not to bruise the moment, Damon watched her carefully. "Can I ask you something?" he said, almost like asking permission to cross a fragile bridge. "Go ahead." "Why don't you look at me the way everyone else does?" She chewed quietly, then placed the bread down and answered truthfully, "Because I know what it's like to be invisible, and people who know that don't look at others like trophies." Damon swallowed hard. With her, he felt more seen than he ever had at any black tie event. Later, just before parting ways, Damon asked a question that would change everything. "Ellie, would you have lunch with me tomorrow?" Her eyes widened. "Tomorrow's Saturday." "Exactly, no uniforms, no badges, just you and real bread." She hesitated. Damon noticed. "It's not a date, just lunch. I promise, no charm," he joked. "Okay. Then, but in a public place, all right?" "Very public, no penthouses," she agreed. The next day they met at a quiet bistro near the city park. Not fancy, just windows wide open and a breeze that didn't ask for permission. Damon got there first. Dark jeans, light shirt, no tie. Lighter than he'd ever allowed himself to be. When Ellie arrived, he held his breath. Simple blue dress, hair down. That same sweet smile. But something different too, like she'd allowed herself to be seen. "Hope you didn't come straight from the cafeteria," he teased. "Today's coffee tasted different," she replied, sitting across from him, had a hint of expectation. Over lunch, she told him about her father, a gardener until his last breath. Her mother, who raised bees and taught her how to harvest what you nurture. She spoke of growing up in trailers, reading books by candlelight, and choosing not to be sad, even when sadness had every reason to win. Damon shared less, but enough. "I grew up surrounded by gold, but none of it ever had flavor, just shine." She looked into his eyes. "And now? Now, I'm starting to taste something." After lunch, they walked through the park. Laughed. At silly things. Let the wind touch their skin like they were truly alive. Damon pulled out his phone. "Can I take a picture of us?" "No," Ellie replied immediately. "Why not?" "Because this, I want to keep right here." She tapped her chest. "The real world tends to ruin beautiful things still learning how to bloom." He slowly lowered the phone. That moment, without filters or hashtags, would become one of the strongest memories he'd ever carry. That night, Damon didn't go home with anyone. For the first time in years, he skipped a party where models waited like trophies. He stayed in silence, thinking of her. The way she chewed slowly, the story of the gardener, her refusal of a photo, and the way his heart was being carved open, not by someone who dazzled, but by someone who simply showed up. And maybe that was everything. They were growing closer, but now the world around them was starting to notice, and not every gaze knows how to love. The next Monday, Damon walked into the office as if nothing had changed, but the whispers followed him like shadows. "Did you hear who he had lunch with on Saturday? They say she's part of the cleaning staff. Ellie something." Her name floated through the halls like something out of place. The elevator became a confessional, the cafeteria a courtroom. Damon heard it all, but he didn't turn back. Ellie arrived at work carrying more than her cleaning supplies. She carried the weight of watching curiosity turn into judgment. The weekend had felt like a dream, but now, back among fluorescent lights and cheap coffee, she could feel the stares, the unspoken questions. And for the first time, she wondered if she belonged. At the end of the day, she crossed paths with Damon in the parking lot. He gave her that look, the one that used to make her smile. She didn't smile this time. "You okay?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "You know I'm not. I don't care what they say, but I do, Damon, because I have to live with it." He wanted to hug her, but she stepped back. That's when the first space opened between them. The next morning, Ellie found a small envelope beside her, coffee tray. Inside was a handwritten note. "I know I can't change the world, but maybe I can change ours. D." Along with the note, a small box. Inside was a pendant, a delicate golden leaf engraved with the words, "True roots outlast time." She held the necklace and took a deep breath. She knew it was a beautiful gesture, but also dangerous. That night she called her mother. They were growing closer, but now the world around them was starting to notice, and not every gaze knows how to love. The next Monday, Damon walked into the office as if nothing had changed, but the whispers followed him like shadows. "Did you hear who we had lunch with on Saturday? They say she's part of the cleaning staff, Ellie something." Her name floated through the halls like something out of place. The elevator became a confessional. The cafeteria a courtroom. Damon heard it all, but he didn't turn back. Ellie arrived at work carrying more than her cleaning supplies. She carried the weight of watching curiosity turn into judgment. The weekend had felt like a dream, but now, back among fluorescent lights and cheap coffee, she could feel the stares, the unspoken questions. And for the first time, she wondered if she belonged. At the end of the day, she crossed paths with Damon in the parking lot. He gave her that look, the one that used to make her smile. She didn't smile this time. "You okay?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "You know I'm not. I don't care what they say, but I do, Damon, because I have to live with it." He wanted to hug her, but she stepped back. That's when the first space opened between them. The next morning, Ellie found a small envelope beside her coffee tray. Inside was a handwritten note. "I know I can't change the world, but maybe I can change ours." D, along with the note, a small box. Inside was a pendant, a delicate golden leaf engraved with the words, "True roots outlast time." She held the necklace and took a deep breath. She knew it was a beautiful gesture, but also dangerous. That night she called her mother. He tried to bury it under meetings, numbers, and noise, but the sound of her absence was louder than anything. He could silence. 3 weeks. That's how long Damon Hale stayed away from the cafeteria. No messages, no notes, no coffee. Ellie Carter pretended not to care. But every morning at 7:15 she glanced at the door, and each time it stayed shut, the silence screamed louder. Part of her thought he'd come back, but maybe pride was stronger than truth. Maybe he had never been different after all. On the 4th week, Ellie did something unexpected. She took an extra piece of bread, wrapped it in a napkin, and walked to the executive tower downstairs. "Please deliver this to Damon Hale," she told the security guard. The man looked confused, but nodded. Inside the bundle, a small handwritten note. "Don't worry. I'm still eating bread, just wondering if you're still digesting silence. Ellie." When Damon received it, he was in the middle of a board meeting. He read the note and froze. He stood up, ignored the puzzled looks, took the elevator to the rooftop, stared out over the city, and for the first time in weeks he let himself feel. The pride that stopped him from reaching out now burned in his chest. He had given her silence, and she had sent bread. She still cared. That night, Damon drove across the city to the public library Ellie once mentioned. He spoke with the librarian, who recognized him instantly. "She comes every Tuesday, loves poetry. Is she here today?" "No, but she reserved a book." It was a worn copy of Emily Dickinson. Inside the back cover, a scribbled note in small, careful handwriting. Some flowers only bloom in the dark, but they still bloom. Damon smiled through tears. In that quiet room, surrounded by dusty shelves, something inside him shifted. She didn't need saving. She just wanted to be respected. The following Saturday, Ellie found an envelope in her locker. No company letterhead, just a name and a handwritten message. Ellie, you were right. I was a coward. I investigated you not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't trust myself. I was raised to believe everything has a price. You taught me what has value. If there's still a chance to sit beside you over a coffee, I'll be on the bench at 7:15 with bread, not flowers. Damon. The next morning, Ellie walked to the park. He was there, sitting on the same bench, a paper bag in his hands, warm bread, honest eyes. She sat beside him. He didn't speak, just held the bag out to her. "It's my grandma's recipe," he said softly. "Still warm, almost cold, but made with regret and hope." Ellie took a piece, bit into it slowly. Silence. Then, eyes still moist, she whispered, "It tastes better than before." He smiled without rushing, so did she. That morning, neither of them said the word forgiveness, but everything about that moment whispered it. Damon Hale was no longer just the magnate, and Ellie Carter was no longer just the bread girl. They were two people who almost lost each other, but chose to stay, and sometimes that's enough, to begin again. They met in the middle, not to forget who they were, but to build what they could become. 3 weeks had passed since the park bench. Damon Hale and Ellie Carter now saw each other nearly every day, not in secret, but not for show either. Same bench, same coffee. They spoke little, but everything between them was in bloom. "You know," Ellie said one morning, "if you want this to work, I need you to promise me something. Anything. That you'll keep eating bread. Even when the world tries to feed you luxury." Damon chuckled, touching her hand. "And you promise to keep seeing me as just a guy, not the guy? Only if you promise to keep seeing me as a woman, not some rare exception." They sealed the deal with a quiet smile. No contracts, no clauses, just truth. Back at the company, whispers still floated, but something had changed. Damon started making quiet moves. New outreach programs, scholarships, a listening ear for employees who used to be invisible. In a board meeting, he made it clear, if love helped me see beyond appearances, then that's the kind of company I want to lead. Some laughed, others resisted, but no one could stop a man who'd finally figured out what mattered. One afternoon, Ellie walked into the cafeteria and found a folder with her name on it. Inside was a letter. "You once said you liked creating simple ideas for big problems. So here's your shot. Pilot project internal communications redesign. You don't need to change who you are, just use what you already have." Damon. She closed the folder with her heart pounding. It wasn't a favor, it was acknowledgement. And more than that, it was an invitation to truly belong. That evening, Damon cooked dinner. By himself. A table in the backyard, lights hanging from trees, music low, almost shy. Ellie showed up skeptical. He wore an apron and a nervous smile. "What is this?" "I'm not just a CEO," he said. "I'm also the executive chef of emotions, remember?" She laughed out loud. "Damon Hale, you are ridiculous. And yet, here you are. Because I like bread. But I've started to like the baker too." They both laughed. That night, between candlelight and homemade pasta, there was no proposal, but something even deeper. A silent yes to what was coming next. Months later, Ellie wrote a letter and tucked it into the drawer of her new office desk. "Dear Damon, if someone had told me I'd fall for a man who dated 40 rich women, I would have laughed. But you showed me that the number of people we loved before doesn't matter, when the heart finally learns how to love right. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did, for hearing the silence others ignored, and for choosing to stay. I still love bread, but now I love you more. Ellie." On the anniversary of their first coffee together, Damon took her back to the cafeteria. No one else was there, just the two of them. He'd set up the corner table, 2 pieces of bread, 2 cups of coffee, and in the middle, a small box. Ellie's eyes widened. "Is that a ring?" "No," he smiled. "It's a key to the house you said was beautiful, but sad." She opened the box. A simple key with a blue ribbon. "I want you to bring your light there." She held the key, eyes full. "And the bread? That'll always be there, but the love, only you know how to make that." They embraced, and for the first time the world felt like it fit inside a quiet cafeteria.